South Pod, Rise of a Region, hosted by Stanfield Gray and John Yarian.
I am here with Cokie Berenyi, self-described perfect day engineer. She's also a financial planner, a rock climber, a mother, an investor, an entrepreneur, involved in so many different activities. Tell us a little bit about
Aspiring goat farmer.
And what else did I miss?
I have to qualify rock climber because
Okay.
I'm a terrible rock climber. I've had to
Mountain climber.
out of necessity. I've scaled many rocks, but yeah, alpine enthusiast. So yes, mountain climber.
Okay. And most of all, lifestyle guru.
You know, that's a new one. That's a new one to the end of my name that I'm having a ton of fun with right now.
Very good.
So if the shoe fits, I'd love to put it on.
Well, let's dive into that for a minute. I know you're into the 411. Can you break down for our audience what that means? And let me preface it by saying we are here at Mercantile Mash having coffee in the morning, and it was one of the reasons why I thought it would be a perfect way to top this podcast off.
It is perfect, and I do love this place. Just the feel and the vibe, everything just feels super intentional and a happy place full of gratitude. So
give us the 411. What does that mean?
411 is an overly simplified framework that, I have to say was a little inspired by Dig South last year.
That's the Dig South Tech Conference here in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yes.
Next April.
So Robert Cooper spoke, and he brought something to light that, he's huge research based on neurological changes and transformation in people's lives. And I'm a mere puppet. I have had I'd say 22-year PhD in client experiences in the financial planning practice that I run. And as such, I've recognized and found these hacks, if you will. Maybe that'll resonate with your listeners for transformation. And that's what 411 is. 411 is a framework for anyone who's trying to create more perfect days in their life. Perfect Day just came out in January. I know you're aware.
Right, and Perfect Day is your most recent work. I have an autographed copy here.
Yes. And self-published version and published version.
Congratulations.
Isn't the world crazy that you have to go through these hoops? So with that being said, it's like, how
this is the prototype, then. This is like the entrepreneur
You have a very
story.
special copy, Stan.
I love it.
You do. So, with all that being said, it's like, okay, here's the framework for a perfect day, but what's the hack? How do you, because we all fall off the wagon, right? It's like, you get on this path of maybe it's intention or meditation or driving revenues within your company or your retirement plan or whatever it may be, but we all sort of fall off the wagon. 411 is a daily, I think, hack for people to stay focused to what's truly going to bring perfect days in their lives. It's not about your to-do list, which we all have the never-ending to-do list, right? We're all on this hamster wheel of life, and I call 411 it's the off-ramp. It's like, wait a minute, I need an off-ramp, I need to get off the hamster wheel. What are the 4 things I'm going to do before 11 a.m. that is going to create transformation and accountability in my life? So
how does it work? Break it down.
It can work in one of 2 ways. You can just attack the animal right now and write down 4 things that, close your eyes, what are the 4 things that are going to make today a perfect day?
Okay.
That's the overly simplistic version, and get it done before 11 a.m. Put everything else aside, all the minutia.
Is 4 important goals before 11 a.m.
And if any one of them takes more than 30 minutes, it's not the right thing.
Okay.
So the spirit of it is just simply momentum around one of those areas.
Put the car in gear.
Correct.
Okay.
I like that. So the other version, the high-level version, is if you've gone through Perfect Day process, you really are in tune with the 4 things that you're aspiring to have over the course of, say, the next year, like what that vision looks like for you. In 4 areas of your life, we talk about financial, we talk about your core, which is who you are, your health, your family, your values. Another area we talk about is experience, so your experiences. How are you growing?
Okay.
Are you wanting to learn more in a certain area of your business? Are you wanting to become better at something in your business that you're not great at, or better in your personal life?
Okay.
Being a better parent. And then there is the ever empty bucket of the contribution bucket in my clients' lives. And I don't want to say empty, I shouldn't say that. But the area of contribution, and I love being able to say this because people should never say never or always, right? But always.
Avoid absolutes whenever possible.
And here it is. Here's the absolute, because I like breaking the rules, right? 100% of the time when I take individuals through this process, whether they're individuals, entrepreneurs, business owners, C-level, C-suiters, 100% of the time when they emerge from the process, the part of their life that they're wanting more, that they're feeling empty in, is the contribution area.
And is that in terms of social impact, philanthropy, just personal contribution to the world, meaning that
all of the above.
Okay.
And you know what I would say the least of which it is who you're going to write a check to tomorrow.
Right. Because that's easy to do, stroke a check.
Absolutely.
It's much harder to give part of yourself to someone.
Right. And so 411 at a higher level is looking at those 4 areas that you've already set an intention of what your perfect day looks like a year from today.
Okay.
And it involves something in those 4 areas, one thing in each of those 4 areas is what does that look like for you in a year? And so your 411 should have something of starting the engine in your car towards each of those 4 aspects. And it may be, I'm going to meditate, and when I finish, I really want to take 10 minutes and think about how can I contribute and how can I be a better contributor to this world or to my family or to my business or to this life I'm living.
Well, let's talk about the off-ramp in your family for a moment. So I want to take you back in time. This is something I gleaned from the book. It sounds like you were in kind of a world of frenzy and chaos and decided to pull up and go to Colorado for a reset. Is that fair to say?
It's very fair to say. And, right now, in this era of, I feel like, I'm in the limelight. I've got this book out there, and I'm launching all these new initiatives, and I've got multiple businesses and founded some nonprofits and blah, 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 right? And so I'm kind of out there. What is more important for everyone to know, especially as I'm up here preaching about perfect days, is that none of it's perfect. And I've had really, really, really imperfect days. So that's where all of this comes from. And I think that's super important to know.
It's just something to strive toward. It's not this goal that makes you feel like a failure because you don't achieve it.
The last thing perfect days are about is perfection. So, I love that you ask about my off-ramp, because I was suffering from something I call lifestyle deficit disorder. And I think most of us, business owners, entrepreneurs, tech innovators or not, I think we all experience some version of this at some stage of our lives. It is just when that hamster wheel is spinning out of control and you don't know how to get off. Well, I woke up one day, looked at my husband, my children at the time were in kindergarten, first grade, and just said, I need a reset. We've got to step back. And the stepping back was really wanting to dial in my values and who we were and just stop the wheel from spinning. And we've got to dial it back in.
Was it frightening to make that decision? Looking back on it now, do you have more perspective? Or were you just like, we got to do this?
I wish I could say it was frightening to me. It wasn't.
So it was more impulsive. Let's try it.
It was too many doors opened that I was said, if I don't walk through one of these doors, this is ridiculous. Too many doors open that said, you must go to Silverton, Colorado, move your children there, put them in this amazing school.
And why Silverton?
That's a fun story. Silverton has one paved road, no stoplights.
Okay.
It's a modern day Little House on the Prairie. It really, really is. So don't tell your viewers
So
that.
little Laura Ingalls running around everywhere.
Absolutely. I had 2 of them. Yes, yes.
Love it.
And at the time, the school in town had 70 children, K through 12, and had just undergone a $13 million gold
The
leaf.
entire town, 70 children,
Yes.
K through 12.
Yes.
Right.
450
And
year-round
And
residents.
you moved from Charleston, is that correct?
Yes.
To Silverton, okay.
Yes. And I would maintain my business back here in Charleston, so it was nice. I could work most of the time in yoga pants and a baseball hat and fly
So it was
home
an
and put on a
off-ramp, but you
suit.
didn't dive off the cliff. I mean, you were still connected. You still kept the tether to Charleston in some way through your clients.
I did. And in some respects, 3 years into having just moved my practice from, what I would consider a big Wall Street firm to me, myself, and me,
Right.
there was a big risk there that my clients were going to
May
think
not
this
follow
is
you.
not a good idea,
Yeah.
that
Let's talk
she's now
about that
skipping
for a minute.
town.
I love the entrepreneurial mindset. So you obviously have the fire and the hustle and all of those things that most entrepreneurs do, or many of the successful ones, I should put it that way. Do you feel like it's something innate in you? Is it something you cultivated over time? Did you kind of always know it, but took the corporate ladder first? How would you describe that?
So my answer may be definitely talking out of both sides of my mouth, and I am opinionated on this one, and I do think that you're born with it. I think risk-taking, true serial entrepreneurs, I think you're born with it.
Do you think it's biochemical? Are we programmed that way? Is it genetic, or is it more of a spirit? What would you?
I don't know if I'm
Describe
smart
it.
enough to answer that,
Okay,
but I'll
so-
say this. Have you ever had it framed in the way of temperament versus... temperament is not genetic, right? It's just, you're born with it.
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that either.
Okay, so
Possibly,
it's
maybe.
you have temperament, and then you have DNA traits that are passed through into you, and I think that it's a bit like that. I don't think that it's genetic, but I think it's part of your temperament. I do think you're born with it, and either you have it or you're not. Either you're a risk taker or you're not. And I think the best of the entrepreneurs out there are risk takers. I mean, but temper that with the fact that I manage money for a living. I manage people's money for a living.
Yeah, so there's a
And
degree
so-
of risk there, and you're gauging their comfort level with the risk.
Well,
right?
and there's
You're
also a
calibrating
degree
it.
of there's a big part of my life which I cannot take risks.
Yes,
So-
yeah, and you want to be risky but not
Yeah.
reckless, right?
Correct. And then part of the story about that risk taking, I think really resonates with what I'm trying to bring to the table for the world right now, because this is my life's message about Perfect Day.
Okay.
Is this idea of being able to take the blinders off and not knowing what may be stifling what's really inside of you. Because I worked for, I call it, Wall Street. I worked for, the man. I was in financial services for 13 years with, the corporate ladder somewhat.
For you, was that exhilarating, or was it soul sucking sometimes? Was it?
I was,
Did
I
you
was,
have
a,
the
I was a
classic
cage,
burnout?
I was a caged animal.
Okay.
It was,
Yeah.
and I had a terrible breakup with a awesome partnership that we grew a practice from 25 million to, I don't even remember now, 350 million, and worked with some amazing people, and we had a terrible breakup, and I know that part of it was me being a caged animal, and that perhaps, and now I can only see this now.
Right.
And the point being is when that ended and I went and decided to go out on my own, it was like the blinders fell off, and immediately this just creativity and there were no boundaries anymore, that I was able to really operate without that corporate structure and the corner office mentality.
Okay.
It's in Charleston. Good people, good food, good coastlines. And you can build a company and go sit on the beach on the same day. For me, as an investor that's just traveling around, it's sort of the easiest way to meet the largest group of entrepreneurs from the region.
This is one of the only conferences in my life that I've ever been to more than once. I think you have the potential to do something very meaningful with what you're doing here. And I believe that there is an enormous opportunity for some of the biggest brands in the world, biggest companies in the world.
Well, let's talk about how you gave shape to your new ventures and to the Perfect Day methodology. In the book, you mentioned 2 or 3 very important mentors. And a lot of entrepreneurs have those people that kind of flow into their life. Sometimes they're designated as a mentor through something like a forum group or a fellowship. Other times you realize they're a mentor after you're collaborating with them. Could you maybe describe a couple of the people that influenced you in that way?
Absolutely. So when the blinders came off, and it just was like the creativity was flowing, and I started the new practice and was like, I have these 5 pillars of things that I want to write in the Wall Street way for investors and for clients at large who want a bigger future with their money. Which, by the way, if I could inject, I've spent the last 22 years working with individuals and institutions to get them to this place in the future about their money and
Right.
what they're aspiring for. And what I want for me and for everyone out there is to be a student of bringing today what they want, as opposed to working for this elusive retirement.
The first year of Dig South on the cover, our tagline was "The future has arrived." It's already here.
It's here. And so it's about perfect days today. It's not about a retirement at 65. I mean, this is the crisis I see right now, is that people are working towards something they may never see. And so with that being said, when the blinders came off and I started the new practice, that was something I wanted to bring to clients' lives in the way of atypical, disruptive financial planning. So I'm the planner who throws the money at you today and says, spend the money today on experiences, on more contribution in your life, on health and your
Deeper
core
meaning.
habits,
Okay.
deeper meaning things. And retirement will come, hopefully, one day. But if you're loving life today and what you're doing today, then you're not going to be rushing for this reset or for the retirement. So that being said, I hired really great people. I had connections with, I have been in a program called Strategic Coach. I don't know if you're familiar. Dan Sullivan and Babs Smith are 2 beautiful people that I have had sort of on the periphery of my life.
Or here when you entered that group?
So I would attend Strategic Coach in Chicago. They're held all over the world.
Okay.
The organization is a mentor based for entrepreneurs who need framework, basically. I hope I've done you well, Dan and Babs. But Strategic Coach has been a huge part of my foundation in meeting people that I would consider, they bring you to your energy point. And so I was able to align with a firm that when I explained this perfect day process or what I wanted to bring to clients' lives in terms of bringing it into today as opposed to, shooting for a 65-year, I want to retire at 65. And what did that look like? I went through some intensive meetings, hired a great team, and they put together a process for me. And they packaged it and made it pretty and helped me really with the ideation process. And interesting, one of those individuals, John LaDuca of the Wisdom Link, actually came out to Silverton during my reset and visited with me. And he was overcome with exactly what my family and I were overcome with in the town of Silverton, which is just getting back to your roots and getting back to those things that are of more meaning.
So did you already have the name Perfect Day at that time? When you
No, I
created
didn't.
it?
I
So
didn't.
What were you calling it as they were helping you shape it?
We called it the Axiom process.
Okay, love it.
Which Axiom came out of the idea of a rules-based structure, because in theory, those 4 areas that we talked about, if you could put some rules around it that attach your money to those areas, then you start allocating money to those areas in your life, as opposed to allocating money just to your Roth IRA or your 401k.
It's almost like an organic budgeting process because you're breaking it down based on those axioms.
Yes, and if you were to pick up your phone, I don't know if you use an aggregation app on your phone that tells you where you're spending your money. But it's an interesting.
Sonny does. Yeah,
Yeah.
we do as a family. I don't know. First, we have it on the phone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, plug. We have one
Right.
at. I have a tool called Alpha Track. I'd
Yes.
love to get you dialed in, or if it's something you're interested in. But
Right.
it helps see where you're spending your money, and it's an interesting exercise to. You know, I didn't create that. Just like I didn't necessarily come up with the idea of 411. Robert Cooper gave me a little bit of the idea around that.
That's Robert Cooper, the neuroscientist.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I think he says 3 things.
Okay.
For me, it's always been 4, because the perfect day process involves 4 areas of your life to create balance.
Right.
So,
Well, let's talk about that word alpha for a minute. I mean, alpha vest, alpha dog, this, your alpha track,
alpha female.
alpha female. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's the beginning.
I've got on my
right?
alpha female shirt.
I love it. Amy Poehler and Tina Fey.
Polar
Yeah.
Fey,
Polar Fey for
2016.
president.
Yeah.
They need to renew that for 2020. Yeah, well,
They lost.
So the beginning is obviously important for you. Are you framing that by an alpha and an omega, or are you just rolling with the alpha?
Going with the alpha.
Love it.
Yeah,
Okay.
going with the alpha. I don't know about any omega. I don't see any end. And that's what I want, innovators and entrepreneurs to have this, to feel like they don't need a reset or to like jump out. I mean, you get that and you feel those wafts, but for those who are contemplating like, oh, I cannot wait to get out, I can't wait to retire, I mean, those are the people who call me and want to meet with me.
Right.
And there's a better way, and so.
And those are the candidates that you diagnose with lifestyle deficit disorder?
Yes,
Okay.
and I do think that a framework like a 411 or a perfect day process is just a super easy antidote. I think many people, feedback I'm hearing is like, oh my God, perfect day, and it's like deer in the headlights. It's like days aren't perfect. It's like, how hard is it to have a perfect day? And so I think the biggest thing to demystify is that perfect days can truly be easy. It's just it's where your mindset is.
Well, it sounds very Zen-like. It sounds like there's a little bit of Buddhism, an undercurrent or something underlying that about being in that moment. Has that ever been a part of your life, or is that, I know you, and throughout the book you have a lot of fantastic quotes from people like Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, and others.
Yeah.
Are there also some philosophical cones kind of resonating through that?
I love that question, because the second I put the period on the last sentence of Perfect Day, I knew what book 2 was. I knew it was missing from book 1. And I will say this, I think book 1 is perfect. It's exactly as it's supposed to be. But book 2 has a resonance of spirituality. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's say there's an entrepreneur out there that's feeling lost, feeling this lifestyle deficit burnout. What would the first steps be what would you recommend? Like how do they address that? How do they pull back out of the whirlwind and take a look at themselves?
I'll quote Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, is that ceiling of complexity. You just got to get super, super simple.
Okay.
And because when they're in that state, I call that state A, they're super overwhelmed, and it's like there's no way out, right?
Right.
There's no way out of this.
Yeah, the task list, the punch list is never ending.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you just got to get super simple and do one little thing different today. Do one thing different. And I don't care if it's, for me, this is the plug. You get up at 5:30 in the morning and you dial into 411 Live, which is my 411. You take 11 minutes, you get up at 4:30 in the morning, you dial into 411, and that would be the absolute first thing to do. Because it's overwhelming to say, you should engage in the perfect day process. Right. Or you should decide where you'd like to contribute more in your life, to
you're
mankind.
Like, look, I got an hour to address this.
No, you need to do one thing very quickly, and I think 411 is the framework, and that's why I gave the earlier answer of like there's an easy answer to like what is 411, and then there's the high level answer.
Right.
But what gets to the heat of it is what you just said. Is like, what do they do in that moment? And they don't need to have the high level. Just go to what are 4 things that could make today perfect, and get them done before 11, and then get back to your to-do list. The world is not going to stop when you put everything aside, your phone, your email, whatever, the world is not going to stop. Your children are not going to die before 11 a.m. Like, take the time for yourself to really rein it in and say, what's truly going to be most important today? What's going to make me feel good about stopping this effing hamster wheel?
Well, what are your thoughts on technology in the hamster wheel? You work with clients who are involved in technology. You're part of the tech conference this year. You run a podcast, and it's I assume it's one of your major communication channels. What are your thoughts on unplugging? How frequently that should be? The duration of that?
I think the answer is different for everybody. Okay. But I will say that I do think it's an epidemic. Right. And I do think it's a problem. And with that being said, my biggest platform is on Facebook with my 411 Live, where I'm begging you to dial into my Facebook page. So it's this dichotomy. And I limit myself and my children. I have an app. I use RPact. Are you familiar with RPact?
No.
I use RPact. It's a very, very helpful tool because I think technology, everyone said this, I think technology can be dangerous with kids right now because it's like they have this.
Right, they have the addiction.
And they don't have a license. It's like letting your kid drive your car at 12 and 14, which I do on the farm, but that's a whole nother story. But it's like, when you give them a car, they have to get to a certain age, they have to pass a certain test.
Right.
There's these things.
They're not mature enough to make
requisites
the
they need to go through before they can get in a however many ton vehicle that actually could kill somebody, right? There's steps you go along the way to make sure that that's not going to happen. Well, people are dying because kids are using this without a license. So I use RPact. I'm not one of those I'm not a mom that's like constantly combing and finding where they're searching and however, but if I ever had a suspicion and I wanted to, RPact would give me the answers. Okay. But RPact also limits my time. So I limit myself to 2 hours a day on social media because when I speak about, and I spoke about this at Dig South last year, is the broken happy meter. When we want to have more perfect days in our lives, you're not going to get that from trying to measure up and looking at your Facebook or your Instagram feed. Right. Do you feel like a loser ever when you go through those feeds and you're like...
Sure, you get FOMO and all sorts of other...
Totally.
Ideas, jealousy, out of the phone. Not only the fear of missing out, but how do I measure up to everyone?
And wanting to map your goals or what you want to the pictures you're seeing. It's like, I'd love to have my own jet.
Digital representation of something you're not even seeing. It could be a person just standing next to a jet. They don't own it. They've never flown in it.
Right.
But you're psychologically, you're not making that.
Well, let's say this. Maybe they do own it. Is that in line with your values?
Right.
You may look at the picture and go, that's what I want. That's where I want to go. This is a real life client story too.
Well, let's talk about education for a minute. Your children are obviously very important to you. And you mentioned the school earlier in Colorado, and I presume they're in school here in Charleston again.
They are.
We grew up, I'm assuming we're close to the same age, during an era of industrialization, kind of pre-digital, as it's evolving into the digital world. Schools were designed, out of a more, especially in the South, from kind of an agrarian framework to an industrial framework, and now digital, now the gig economy. Do you think that we need to, meaning we as a society, need to recalibrate the educational model? Are we doing a good job teaching our kids how to engage with technology in a meaningful way, or are we kind of missing the boat on that and they'll have to figure it out for themselves? What do you think? Maybe you as a person, but also collectively, the way we approach our school system.
Wow.
That's a hard question. It's a little outside the perfect day,
it's fine. When you threw in approaching the school system, that put a wrench in it. I don't know if this is answering the question, but I would say I absolutely believe technology needs to be a part of our kids' lives and part of our education structure. I just think there needs to be an overlay, this really comfy, your binky blanket. It needs to have this overlay of being connected. connected to humans, number one, and connected to yourself on what your true core values are. And I do believe and I'm seeing this in the businesses and the people I work with, and I'm just seeing it in general at large, is that there is a crisis of disengagement. And I think that's what's so beautiful about Dig South, is that here it is, a tech conference where, everyone's, it's tech, which seems so disconnected to like the human connection. But yet Dig South, I have met some of the most outstanding people in my life at that conference. And it's about getting the tech innovators together and connecting.
It's because you're engaging with them physically. You're pressing the flesh, making eye contact.
And so
breathing the same air.
Right. So back to the school model is, I think that it actually needs to be tech heavy, because I think it creates so many more efficiencies and so much more innovation and possibility of the what ifs. But there needs to be a lot of education around core values and who you are and time and spirituality, and I don't know that our kids of today are even getting that from their parents. I mean, I don't like to paint a generality. Sure. But we do have a crisis of disengagement because the world is so fast right now because of technology.
Steven Pinker, thought leader, Harvard professor, recently wrote a book and is really pushing this idea of enlightenment, that if you look globally at most of the indicators, there's less violence in the world, the wars are farther in between, more people are rising out of poverty. So the data shows progress, but we're engaged with so much negativity through the news and social media and dystopian film and all these ideas that people have this sense that things are tough and bad and getting worse, but that's not what the data is showing. So we're like, it seems like we're in this paradox. So in your view, do you feel like, you seem like an optimist, do you feel like we're making that progress toward not perfection or utopia, but generally the trend line is that direction versus this fear of a dystopian techno universe, techno world where the robots are coming to get us?
It's not one-on-one human engagement like we're having right now, which is beautiful, but it's another form of it. So I think it's the lens you put on, quite frankly. And you could absolutely put on a lens that says the robots are going to take over the world, and that's happening. And I believe, quite frankly, there's some parts of industry where that should be happening.
Healthcare, we might possibly cure cancer through robotics.
Absolutely.
Yeah, through the technological innovation.
But I don't think that the human aspect is ever in danger. I think there's a swing, but I think we'll always prevail.
Well, in closing, let's take it back to the book, Curing Lifestyle Deficit Disorder. That's a lens that you put on things. You built a framework. Where can our audience find out more about this? Where can they pick up your book? Yeah. What website should they visit?
I would love it for anyone who would like to be on my podcast. So Perfect Day Podcast is going to be broadcasting live from Dig South this year. So if you're interested, ping me anywhere on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Great.
You name it.
Well, in full disclosure, you're one of our sponsors, and we could not do it without you. We're super grateful for your support, the support of everyone that gets behind Dig South and makes it happen.
The idea of having perfect days is true for everyone, whether they're in tech or healthcare or...
Well, Mark Benioff from Salesforce said that software is eating the world, and I believe it's already eaten it. So I think everybody works in technology, whether they're aware of it or not.
Amen.
The supply chain, the digital channels, the smartphone. You know, some people just don't frame it that way. That's not their lens, but I think we're all in the bubble together.
Yeah, and ending in vulnerability, my team's gonna kill me. I'm always searching for the technological advances with Perfect Day or AlphaVest, and we have developed some interesting technologies. But I came off Kili this year. I was on Kilimanjaro when she climbs New Year's Eve this year, and I love that piece of it. It puts me in a space of what do I want, and I woke up going, I need the app. I want to deliver a technological piece of 411 that's on this, because we all have this. So hello, Dick Southers. I don't know who's there, who I need to connect with.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Stan. It was awesome.
Thank you for listening to Southpod, Rise of a Region, where innovators dish on success, failure, and a rapidly evolving South.